मुनपीरा वनचारी जय श्री कृष्ण जय चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जय जगन्नाथाय जय बलदेवाय सुभद्रमाय जय सुदर्शनाय जय गौरांगी बेंगलोर जय गौरांगी बेंगलोर गौरांगी बेंगलोर जय गौरांगी जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय अनंत देव लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय अनंत देव जय वामन देव वामन देव वामन देव जय वामन देव जय निताय चैतन्य जय निताय चैतन्य निताय चैतन्य जय निताय चैतन्य जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। Hare Krishna. Welcome to today's discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam from third canto, 30th chapter, titled Adverse Fruitive Description by Lord Kapila of Adverse Fruitive Activities. And we would discuss today two verses, 24th and 25th. So let's recite the verses. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanang Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Deving Saraswating Vyasang Tato Jayam Udirayet Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityang Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नंदनाय च नंदगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। योजनानां सहस्राणि नवतिं नवचाध्वनः त्रिभिर्मुहूर्तैर्द्वाभ्यां वा नीतः प्राप्नोति यातनाः। योजनानां सहस्राणि नवतिं नवचाध्वनः त्रिभिर्मुहूर्तैर्द्वाभ्यां वा नीतः प्राप्नोति यातनाः। योजनानां सहस्राणि नवतिं नवचाध्वनः त्रिभिर्मुहूर्तैर्द्वाभ्यां वा नीतः प्राप्नोति यातनाः। Word by word meaning, translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Word by word meaning, Yojana Nam of Yojanas. Sahasrani, thousands. Navatim, 90. Nava, 9. Cha, and. Advanaha, from a distance. Tribhe, 3. Muhurtaye, within moments. Dvabhyang, 2. Va, or. Nitaha, brought. Prapnoti, he receives. yatanah, punishments. Translation. Thus, he has to pass 99,000 yojanas within 2 or 3 moments, and then he is at once engaged in the torturous punishment which he is destined to suffer. Purport. 1 yojana is calculated to be 8 miles, and he has to pass along a road which is therefore as much as 792,000 miles. Such a long distance is passed over within a few moments only. The subtle body is covered by the constables so that the living entity can pass such a long distance quickly and at the same time tolerate the suffering. This covering, although material, is of such fine elements that material scientists cannot discover what the coverings are made of. To pass 792,000 miles within a few moments seems wonderful to the modern space travelers. They have so far traveled at a speed of 18,000 miles per hour. But here we see that a criminal passes 792,000 miles within a few seconds only, although the process is not a spiritual but material. Let's recite the 25th. आदिपनं स्वगात्राणां वेष्टयित्वोल्मुखादिभिः आत्ममांसादनं क्वापि स्वकृतं परतोऽपि वा आदिपनं स्वगात्राणां वेष्टयित्वोल्मुखादिभिः आत्ममांसादनं क्वापि स्वकृतं परतोऽपि वा आदिपनं स्वगात्राणां वेष्टयित्वोल्मुखादिभिः आत्ममांसादनं क्वापि स्वकृतं परतोऽपि वा Adipanam, setting on fire, Swagatranam, of his own limbs, Veshtayitva, having been surrounded, Ulmuk Adiviri, by pieces of burning wood, and so on. Atma Mamsa, of his own flesh, Adanam, eating. Kwa api, sometimes. Swakritam, done by himself. Parataha, by others. Api, else. Va, or. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace. Translation. He is placed in the midst of burning pieces of wood and his limbs are set on fire. In some cases, he is made to eat his own flesh or have it eaten by others. Purport. From this verse, through the next 3 verses, the description of punishment will be narrated. The first description is that the criminal has to eat his own flesh, burning with fire, or allow others like himself who are present there to eat. In the last great war, people in concentration camps sometimes ate their own stool. So there is no wonder that in the Yamasadana, the abode of Yamaraj, one who had a very enjoyable life eating others' flesh has to eat his own flesh. ओम अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्री राधा कृष्ण पादां सहगण ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितांश्च नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण पृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिन् इति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा. So the chapter is titled Descriptions by Lord Kapila for adverse fruitive activities. So this adverse fruitive activities, right? So this is essentially pointing to vikarma. Yeah, in the Shastras, like there are three types of karmas mentioned. One is the karma, which is, sanctioned activities as per the Varnashram and the Vivarnashram system in the Vedas. And the second is akarma, that is essentially referring to the devotional service, which does not result into any pious or anything, pious credit. It's just if we serve the Lord, then the benefit is elevating to the spiritual world, not to suffer or enjoy the reactions of the work, right? And the vikarma, which is prohibited activities, so that is what is being referred here, adverse fruitive, right? So, so two things are essentially mentioned here. How a typical attached, human being attached to only sense gratification, unrestricted sense gratification, not just sense gratification. Because in Karma Kanda section in the Vedas, there are some sanctioned sense gratification. So that does not result into hellish suffering in hellish planets. But there are forbidden and unrestricted sense gratification. If someone basically goes through that, then one has to suffer the reactions accordingly. So what are the, in what ways people, common mass of people or many people, they go through an unrestricted sense enjoyment, and what are the consequences? Two things are mentioned in this chapter. So let's actually ponder over few points from the purpose first, and then we will see. So one thing is, this is very subtle process, and the after a soul, right? After it has to give up its gross body, and then the subtle body still retains the basically mind, intelligence, false ego, right? So that remains in the subtle as part of subtle body. And then if one is basically sinful enough, by performing unrestricted sense enjoyment, what happens? What is the harm in unrestricted sense enjoyment? Because essentially one ends up encroaching on others' rights or committing violence towards other. That is part and parcel of unrestricted sense enjoyment, right? That we will see how it happens after some time. Yeah. So because of that, because of harming others, and because of not living as per the code of conduct which Lord has mentioned in Vedic literature, so then one is a suitable candidate for punishment, right? So here, so coming back, the subtle body is made of mainly man, buddhi, and ahankar, mithya ahankar, right? So this subtle body also stores, all the karma vasana, as well as one is given by the facility of Yamraj or material nature, is given that one will be able to remember one's sinful activities. So that we discussed in till 21st, 22nd, 23rd, 3 verses yesterday, right? So then what happens when the soul is given a suitable covering, by Yamdutas, so that one can suffer basically the punishment because of that particular body, and one is given the power to endure also. Then one will not really become fully unconscious completely. So one will be able to feel the pain through that particular yatna sarir, or the subtle covering given by Yamadutas, through which one has to experience the suffering. And then if someone falls unconscious, one has to, come back to consciousness, again suffer. So like that. So yeah. So as and when the dogs on the way, they bite, one remembers what sinful activity one has committed, right? So here Srila Prabhupada says, yeah, it is a long distance and one has to move quickly, right? So yeah, this covering, although material, is of such fine elements that material scientists cannot discover what the coverings are made of. So material scientists cannot figure out, first of all, existence of this, material, even though it's a material, but it's so subtle that material scientists cannot discover this body, this yatna sarir, right? The body given by Yamdutas to their soul to suffer. And even though it's material, so scientists cannot discover this they cannot prove this. And they are not with their blunt senses and instruments, right? Does it mean it does not exist? No. If I am not aware of something, it doesn't mean that that thing or that concept or that entity does not exist. That's the basic logic, right? So scientists are not able to discover or establish this subtle body's existence. But it doesn't matter whether scientists believe it or not. One has to. Laws are infallible, right? It is applied without any fail. One cannot escape the laws of nature, essentially the laws of Yamaraj, which has been, given by Lord only. So Lord Krishna only, Lord Vishnu. So that cannot, one cannot escape from that. Sometimes people commit some crime and by hook or crook, generally they are caught, but sometimes, they are using their money, power, muscle power, they avoid law, right? The lawful enforcement, that they avoid that in this material world. As Kali Yuga is progressing, we see that happens, powerful people, rarely some politicians who are corrupt, they are, given punishment, right? By this or that loophole, they escape the law, man-made laws. But laws of Yamaraj, and which is essentially, that is given, that power of Yamaraj is also given by Lord only. So Lord has awarded that power to Yamaraj, that no one can escape his laws, his his rule. So Yam Dand, right? So that is infallible. So one cannot escape Yamaraj's laws. So that is one thing. If whether we believe or not believe. Another question comes, or point comes, why does not Lord make it visible to us, right? It's a common sense sort of question. The thing is, if it is publicly or it is visible, right, then it would become like, interference in the free will, right? That would mean, that we are Lord is interfering with someone's exercise of free will. So that's why it's not visible. But at the same time, kindly Lord has given the directions, how to live life in this world and how to leave this material world. That entire all these things have been given in the scriptures. So it's like scriptures are like manual, like we purchase some instruments and how to use that instrument effectively and properly. For that, a manual is also given by the manufacturer. Similarly, Lord has designed this material world and for our purification and correction only. And how to live in this world, for that, Vedic scriptures are there. And the topmost of that is basically, those are Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and for us, especially Chaitanya Charitamrita. So Lord has kindly given all that so that we can actually, fulfill the purpose for which we are here, and then basically achieve the, eternity that is in association of Lord in the spiritual world. So let's see the next some points from next verse. Yeah, so there are some vivid details about this, right? How one suffers. So, and Yamaraj's abode is also named here, Yam Sadhan. And in 5th canto and somewhere else it's mentioned as Sanyamani. Sanyamani, like Sanyam is like, like a control, right? So that is also another name of abode of Yamaraj. Anyway, so now let's come to some details or some important points from today's topic, right? So we will see. First of all, what is the purpose behind the vivid description of hellish planets? And then we have root cause. What is the root cause of sinful activity? Is it possible to live a sinless life, right? Yeah. Is it possible to live a sinless life? And why not live a mostly sinless life or sin-free life in the material world, right? And finally, do we have a full and final solution to end this fear of hellish living permanently, right? These are some of the main points I would like to share today, right? So let's see. The purpose behind a vivid description of hellish planets. It's mentioned now in this 30th chapter, And then it is mentioned further in 5th canto, like last chapter, 26th chapter of 5th canto, right? So what I could collect on the from points from Srila Prabhupada's purports and Acharya's lectures is this: the description of health is for the worldly people, so that they can stop their unrestricted sense gratification, mostly at the cost of others' peace or well-being. It happens. So as Ishopanishad mentions, right? Ishavasam, right? So idam sarvam ten taktena bhanjita, right? So if we collect or if we grab more than what is necessary for our peaceful existence, that means we are encroaching on others' quota. That's what actually creates artificial problem. Like one example we can see is some big greedy businessmen. They hoard a lot of grains, right? So then what happens in our grains or other stuffs, right? Eatable stuffs, and that creates artificial scarcity in the market. Demand increases, and demand is same, but supply is less, and price increases. Many poor people, they are not able to afford it, right? So then who will bear that karma, right? So that karma is, that is a simple thing, right? Artificially hoarding and just to inflate the price many times. Srila Prabhupada says that a businessman can earn profit, but not like that. So that is so if people get to hear, that by doing this, such kind of simple activity, one will be punished, right? And another thing is, we might remember, or we might have experienced that when someone passes, right, in our family or some relative, right, then typically for few days, Garud Puran is recited by some pujari or some priest, right, some pandit, right, and they come to our home and they recite Garud Puran. So I have gone through that, like I have, heard, but mostly it's quite a big overlap with what is already described in Srimad Bhagavatam, essentially how the soul is taken to Yamaraj's abode, right? The point is, it is not for the benefit of the departed soul, as people think. Some people think that it is for those who are left behind, alive, like embodied human beings, who can still hear this and correct their, basically reform their habits if they are doing any such thing, right? So it is for them. It is not for the dead. It is for the living, right? So that we can course correct. That is one. Now there are some things in actually, 4th canto also, when Dhruv Maharaj is, when the pastime of Dhruv Maharaj starts, that time in the beginning, it is mentioned, how finally the hell is created. Let's see, actually, 484, right? So, yeah. So how actually that happens? So actually, yeah, how actually when hell personified, right? Niraya, how it is born, right? It all begins from irreligion, right? Essentially. Let's see what the next one says. See. My dear Vidura, I have summarily explained the cause of devastation. One who hears this description 3 times attains piety and washes the sinful contamination from the soul. By hearing basically how the all these negative things, adharma religion, right? How it starts, right? By hearing such description, one gets purified. But the question is, does the purification happen properly? Let's see, actually. Sometimes it happens. Actually, Prahlad Maharaj says, sometimes it happens, sometimes it does not happen, for some people. Prahlad Maharaj says that even, in 7th canto, 6th chapter, Vidwanapi, let's see actually that, it will be helpful. So with even the knowledgeable people, what to speak of ignorant people, right? So let's see. Even the, yeah, 15, 14, yeah. Not 14, say this one, 16th, right? What it says, Vidwanapitham Danudah Kutumba. See, here what it says. It's not just because of lack of knowledge, sometimes despite knowing this, that we will be punished. Like if I commit something, something sinful, I will be punished. Despite knowing that in this material world, even those who are apparently advanced in education, engaged in providing the necessity of life to their families, right? it's not a problem. It's not a bad thing to maintain family. But what happens is the nature of this material world, that when one is so much attached to only his family, and doesn't have any compassion for any other person, what happens? To fulfill their family's need, they commit any sort of activity to somehow earn money or somehow grab money, and try to live happily, extravagantly, and at the cost of others, basically, even by cheating others, right? So yeah, Ajamil case is extreme, that he brought prostitute, but otherwise also, even with living one's legitimate wife and children, I have experienced myself this thing, no, not that I have taken, but I have seen others, family people, they actually, it's not, I'm not trying to accuse others, but I have seen this happening. They made some pretense that they need something for that, some specific thing, and that turned out to be not correct, and they took, basically, I have seen it happening, others, with others also. The point is, and they are devotees, like practicing progressive devotees. The point is, it happens. We cannot say that, that we can completely, like everyone who once comes to know about the punishments, right, of sinful acts, cheating, irreligion. If one comes to know about this, they will stop it fully. No, it's not easy. It's possible that we will see. We will come towards the what is the final and full solution, to avoid this permanently. We will come to that. But point is, the swabhava is very, very, powerful thing. As in the third chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna mentions, right, that let's see that actually third chapter, that Bhagavad Gita, towards the end, Krishna shows that, basically shares this with Arjuna, right? Yeah. It is lust only, right? Kamesa krodvasa rajogun samudbhava, right? This one, right? Mahasano mahapapma vidyayanam ehavairinam. So this one actually, rajogun and tamogun, right? These are the lower modes of nature. So if one is suffering from that, then one would end up committing some or other gross or subtle, sinful acts, right? So like that. For example, if one is lusty, then one would not be free from the lustful thoughts against, basically other women or ladies, girls of who are right. So beyond one's legitimate wife, one would still feel lusty, right? So and vice versa, right? So for other gender also, it's not only limited to only men, right? It can be for anyone, because it's not that material mode of nature affects only the males, right? It affects everyone, right? Ladies also, right? So point is, if one is suffering from lower mode, one is more, predominated by lower modes of nature, then that swabhava, it is actually makes it impels one to commit such thing either mentally or physically. So what is the solution? Yeah, in as a simplest solution, in simplest terms, we can describe that what Srila Prabhupada says, Bhagavad Gita 14.26, right? Directly Srila Prabhupada mentions there. That is the simplest, description of the solution, right? So, Mangcha yo abhivicharena bhakti yogena sevate sa gunan samtitetan brahma bhojaya kalpate. Basically, unflinching, and full devotional service to Krishna. That is the solution to all that. One who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, even if there are some, disturbance in our personal life or maybe occupation or anything. Under no circumstance, if we don't give up, basically, in any circumstance, right? Then, and we continue to perform our devotional service, like chanting minimum 16 rounds of Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and hearing another thing. At least chanting should be maintained. If under some special circumstances, we are not able to, devote time to active listening of Krishna Katha. But chanting, we cannot compromise. Yes, if we ourselves are under some medical emergency, then Srila Prabhupada has given the leeway or freedom that, or the solution that, okay, when we recover, we should complete our balance or due rounds, right, of Hare Krishna mantra. So that is there. So point is, if we if we remain engaged in devotional service, full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, then at once we can transcend the modes of material nature. So the answers are simple. Practicing it requires a lot of personal endeavor and lots of grace, or our gurus and Parampara's mercy, right? Definitely, both the things are needed. Cannot happen just by our own endeavors, only by our endeavor. Endeavor is needed very much. Yeah. So Sukadeva Goswami also says, actually, the root cause of sinful activity is ignorance, right? That we don't fully, we don't realize that we are a spirit soul. Theoretically, we know that I'm not the body, I'm the soul, right? We know that. But do we act like that all the time? No, we don't. I don't act like that all the time. So the point is that deep conviction in the core of the heart is not yet there, right? And full understanding is not yet there. Otherwise, as Acharya says, I have heard from their lectures that if we had such conviction genuinely, then as soon as time permits, we would have pick up either chanting or hearing or sharing, Sravanam and Kirtanam. We would immediately pick up as soon as time permits. What is the meaning of as soon as time permits? That see, if we are not full-time brahmacharis, let's suppose grihasthas or aspiring grihasthas. So let's suppose they are occupied in some occupation, right? Job, business, or anything, right? So apart from that time, as soon as we get some time, like 8 hours, 10 hours, whatever we devote in that, apart from that and our sleep and other things, we still get so much time. So if we were fully convinced, then we would have picked all those, right? So point is, what is established is we still have like some ignorance, right? That we are actually not the body, we are a spirit soul. This is not actually we don't practice it fully, right? So yeah, we still have some identification with body and bodily relations and objects which we have earned by bodily or in mental endeavors, right? Okay, so because of ignorance of relationship with Krishna, we know that we are parts and parcel of Krishna, and we actually belong to a spiritual world, but we don't have full conviction of this. So we actually suffer in this material world. Example in this regard is given of a rich man is there and he has his children, and let's suppose a particular some children, one child maybe, let's suppose gets kidnapped, by some, these days we hear such news, right? So one child is kidnapped and by some gang and taken to some different city, right? And then under the now the child will the kidnappers, right, they cannot force the child to beg on the street, right? Because the child is aware, that my father is such a rich man, I'm from such a cultured family, why should I do that? So the child will resist that activity so much. Now what the kidnappers do, they actually drug him, right? So they drug him, drug the child, and then he is forced to follow. So many, like most of the people in this material world, they are in a similar condition. We are all children of Krishna. We are, Krishna is our father, and we are children of him, and we are kidnapped by Maya. But it's not that because, so it's not fault of Krishna, as it is mentioned in Prema Vivarta, that as soon as we become Krishna Vimukh, develop the intense desire to enjoy separately from Krishna, immediately, then Maya, which is external energy of Krishna, it starts performing her basically thankless job, that she puts us into this material world, because we have this tendency, to lord it, to be center of enjoyment, right? Which is not possible in the spiritual world. Then Maya actually puts us into this illusion. Yes, you are the head of your family, you are controller of this, team in your office, all that thing, right? You enjoy, you be the center of enjoyment in this material world. There's the whole background, right? So if now we have forgotten Krishna, not, it is not that Krishna has, whimsically made us forget this. No, we wanted to go away from Krishna and, enjoy on our own and being in the center. That is the whole, the genesis. Yeah. So that's the point. So the solution is, actually we will come to that, but right now, like if we take one point, the point is with the intensity, we forget Krishna, with that same intensity, we have to again revive our relation with Krishna, and Krishna has to become the soul, or the only loving person, like only person of, love, like for us. Then only we can actually become eligible to go back to, his place, yeah, which is either one of the Vaikuntha's or Golokvrindavan. So here, actually, one interesting pastime in Bhagavatam is Ajamil's pastime, where, this sinful activity, by the way, sinful activities, there are some, temporary counteraction to that, so that is called prayaschit, right, or atonement. So Parikshit Maharaj, when he hears that, one should, perform atonement, one should atone for one's sinful activity while still in this body, then one can escape the hell. But then Parikshit Maharaj notices that even after atonement, people don't give up their tendency to commit sin again and again, right? It's like a thief, right? A thief, when he's captured by police, he is punished for whatever, some duration, 6 months, 1 year, 3 year, depends, right? So it's not that all thieves who come out of the jail, they are fully reformed, they become ideal citizen. No, we hear many times that, when some criminal is caught, police traces the history and finds out that this person has already been, punished earlier. So then Parikshit Maharaj raises the question, what is the use of atonement, right? People will keep committing sinful activity. So what's the use of atonement? Then Shukadeva Goswami finally reveals first he gives the, initial, carrot, as you say, carrot and stick. So initially he gives one allurement to Parikshit Maharaj, that prayaschittam vimarsanam. The real atonement is Vedanta. If one is expert or knowledgeable of Vedanta, is fine. But then he says, no, finally he gives the final solution is this one, 6.1.15, which is basically says that if one surrenders to Lord Narayana, or basically Krishna, then, one becomes, Kechit Kevalya Bhaktya Vasudeva Parayana. Agam Dhanvanti Karsnena Niharamya Bhaskara. Solution is that only. Unless one has unalloyed devotional service to Krishna, till that time, tendency to, extreme sense gratification, that will remain. There is no question. So, okay, so let's see. Now we know the root cause and some high-level solution. Yeah, let's see. Actually, is it possible to live a sinless life? Let's suppose I am not committing any violence towards others. I will commit, I will work nicely, and I will, maintain my family nicely. The thing is, simple answer is not possible. Example in Srimad Bhagavatam is given of King Nirga. That is, he was a great king, pious king, and there was no limit to his pious credit or activities, and still, because of something which he did not commit intentionally, he was, born, he was given a hellish body, which is that of a lizard, great lizard, big lizard, right? And Dwarka area, right? In the Dwarka area. So children of Yadu dynasty, they were playing. They noticed this in a this large lizard in a dry well. They tried to take it out. They were unsuccessful. They informed Krishna, his Yadukul children, right? And then Krishna comes, he touches the lizard, and immediately the lizard gets transferred into a heavenly body, like personality, right? And then the person was actually King Nirga in previous life, and he recounts that how, despite his, despite him not committing any sinful activity, he still suffered this. What happened? He donated a large number of cows to a particular Brahmana. One cow out of that large stock came back to king on its own, right? Ran and came to king's Gosala. And when king, not knowing that this cow is already donated, along with that returned cow, the King Nirga actually donated a large number of cows to other Brahmana. And the first Brahmana, when he noticed that, I don't know how they were able to identify all the cows, but anyway, so this first Brahmana noticed that one of his cows is now in possession of other Brahmana, and then and then there is a dispute. They go to king. King says that, tries to placate the first Brahmana. First Brahmana says, I will not be satisfied unless you return me that very cow. And second Brahmana is not willing to return it, and king could not do anything. And because of this unintentional, fault, King Nriga, who had immense pious credits, he had to take a, very, lower species of life, right, which is a lizard. So that is one example that just illustrates that such a great pious king also had to suffer this. And in our day-to-day life, we actually commit many unintentional negative activities, right? when we clean up our home, then we end up killing either small ants or some other entities, right? Living entities, right? So even our breathing, our rubbing hands, so many things, right? So small, very small, subtle living entities, they get either killed or like that, or they are suffering, because of our normal human activity, right? So it's not possible to counteract or avoid sins completely. That is one. So that's why 5 types of yajnas are recommended for grihasthas. I don't have the details right now, but we can, figure out the names and other details of that. But that's not the actual process in this age as recommended by Lord himself, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's not that, perform these five kind of yajnas and don't endeavor to connect back to Krishna. That's not the solution. Let's say, again, the same thing. Why not live a mostly sinless life in the material world? Because then we would continue our journey in the material world of Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi, right? And Adi Sankaracharya says in his famous creation, famous compilation, which is Bhaja Govindam, right? What will happen? Punarapi Jananam, Punarapi Maranam, Punarapi Janani, Jathare Jainam, right? Again, we will be put born and die again, put into the womb of a mother, a particular species, mother of a particular species, right? Again, go into the womb and then suffer the Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi. That's why Sankaracharya says that his petition is, he says, Punarapi Jananam, Punarapi Maranam, Punarapi Janani, Jathare Sainam, Iha Sansare, Bahudustare. This material ocean, saga, right, is very difficult to cross over. Kripaya Pare, Pahi Murare. So please, mercifully, please, make me cross over this. So that's the thing. So that's one. And the same thing is, in other words, we could say that if we remain in this material world, then we will not be in our natural Sachidanand situation. Yeah? The soul, we say that, right? Krishna is Sachidanand Ghan and we are Sachidanand, right? We means we are spirit souls. But we cannot realize that in this material world, right? Because this Jad Sarir, we are entrapped into this Jad Sarir, right? So we cannot really be in Sachidanand unless we become pure devotees. That's the difference. Then Vishwan, if we become pure devotees, that is like Vishwam Purn Sukhayate, right? For us, it's not miserable. Anywhere we are there for pure devotee, we can still release, Krishna's association because of our absorption in his, holy names or his pastimes, remembering the pastime again and again. But most majority is population is not pure devotees, right? Hardly there are few pure devotees. So these are the points, like why we should not remain in the, try to endeavor, try to remain in the material world itself. Yeah, it's like Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita also, right? Abrahma Bhavana Loka Punaravartana Arjuna, right? So he says that whether you go to lowest species or the highest planet, which is, Brahma's planet, everywhere Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi is there. But yeah, Brahmaji is special in that case, that typically what happens, one who reaches the Brahma Loka, like which is abode of Lord Brahma, then typically in general case, they are at the end of their lives, they are promoted to a spiritual world from there. So that's a normal case, but exceptions can always be there. So we cannot rule out that is also under the mode of nature. It's not free from the modes of nature, So yeah, the final solution, the solution is, the purpose we came to know that we should, or some people, they should avoid committing, violence towards other to fulfill their own extravagant sense gratification. That's the purpose. And we went through the basically root cause ignorance, possible to live sinless life, not possible in this material world. and final solution is Kechit Kevalaya Bhaktya Vasudeva Parayana. To the degree we like Krishna, that liking will happen only by repeated hearing of Krishna's pastime. That is mentioned actually, Let's see, it's amazing what Srila Prabhupada has mentioned in 11.52. Let's see quickly. The solutions are simple. Just that sustain. It's not easy to follow this process every day with whole enthusiasm. For the brahmacharis, they live in that environment and association. For them, it becomes easier because that large and big, powerful association is quite helpful. But for grihasthas, they have to consciously endeavor. Yeah. See here. And by repeated hearing about him, Krishna becomes dear. It's simple. In plain words, Srila Prabhupada has mentioned. So we have to hear Krishna's pastimes, mainly from, Srimad Bhagavatam, and of course, Chaitanya Charitamrita. That is even further special, more special. By repeated hearing. So this is the open and plain secret. Yeah, we have to hear again and again. Yeah, that from pure devotees, from Srila Prabhupada and his loyal followers who are progressive pure devotees, who have full allegiance to Srila Prabhupada, so if we hear from them and who have Krishna as their main goal in their lives, right? If we hear from such persons, then it will benefit us immensely, right? So these are the points I wanted to share. Solution is that only, liking Krishna, loving Krishna. To that degree, we will be not interested in sinful life or even extravagant sense gratification. So we cannot say that we will not commit any have any sense gratification, because simple thing is the soul doesn't need these grains, right? What we eat, but body needs. Yeah, to keep the body and soul together, we have to do some of the activities, right? When we take plant, we eat grains and plants, right? So we cut the plants. So of course those are part and parcel of our sustenance, and the solution is that we actually offer it to Krishna and then we eat, right? So solution is always ABCD, right? Association, book reading. Srila Prabhupada's given books are there, and we can read that. It becomes we can derive more taste as and when our sadhana continues. We chant 16 sincere rounds and follow the four regulatory principles. And over the time, we do get more and more, taste, in releasing Krishna, in Krishna's pastimes. Yeah. So there's another thing which we could, just have a look, which is, how to develop taste. So in Krishna Katha, right? So that is also mentioned in a very plain way here. Susupso Sraddha Dhanasya Vasudev Katha Ruchihi Syan Mahatsevya Vipraha Punya Tirtha Nisevana. But it says that by serving those devotees who are completely freed from vice, great service is done. By such service, one gains affinity for hearing the message of Vasudeva. So it begins with, service to the pure devotee. That we have to, do out of our own free will. So in our respective temples or centers, there are many dedicated devotees they keep visiting, or even grihasthas who actually who are fully dedicated to preaching work. There are many grihasthas also like that. If we serve their preaching activity, then we also can get taste in hearing the Krishna Katha, Vasudeva Katha. So this is what is, Lord, Lord delegates our purificatory work to his pure devotees or dedicated devotees, right? So we have to serve them and try to hear from them. As soon as we serve them, we will get natural taste in hearing. As soon as we hear Krishna Katha, then what is famous is, as soon as we develop the taste, then what happens? This is the thing. Srinvatam Sogadha Krishna, Punya Sravan Kirtana. Right? Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is Paramatma, super soul, in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear. This develop the urge that we covered in previous sloka, right? By serving the devotees, we develop the urge to hear his message, right? So Krishna specifically cleanses our heart just by hearing his katha, right? Vidhunoti, Visheshena Dhunoti. like specifically he cleanses, so like that. So that processes are simple. We have to try to just serve those, dedicated and great devotees who are, who are very good in sadhana, who are basically preaching nicely, vigorously, right? If we serve them, we will also, get purified. Yeah. So this is all I had to say. This, with respect to today's two slokas. I will end here unless there is some question. Okay, looks like we don't have any question. So I will stop here. Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.